Imagine yourself on vacation in one of the most fascinating countries in the Middle East, Iran. A place where history and modernity intertwine, where vast deserts coexist with bustling cities full of life. You, who have always been drawn to the mystery and grandeur of ancient Persia, have only one desire: to drop your luggage at the hotel and embark on an adventure. Your heart is overflowing with joy. You're as excited as a child on Christmas Eve. But you're about to find out that the course of your vacation will take an unexpected turn. I don't want to alarm you, but your vacation won't be exactly as you imagined. Well, now that you're already in Iran and there are no available return flights, going back is not an option. You can only move forward and wait for your departure date, if you stay unharmed, of course. The customs officer returning your passport says to you, "Welcome." With a radiant smile, you reply, even without speaking a word of Arabic. It's not necessary. After all, your journey will consist of soaking up the beauty of the country, its historical remnants, its rich culture, and its fascinating traditions. Speaking isn't required. However, understanding will be essential, but you don't realize that yet. You find yourself stepping out of the hotel with a fresh and elegant air, ready to explore the streets of Tehran. The capital welcomes you with its hustle and bustle, where the modern and traditional intertwine in harmony. You venture into the Grand Bazaar, enthralled by the explosion of colors and sounds around you. Next, you pay a visit to Shiraz and the ruins of Persepolis, immersing yourself in the tales of ancient Persian kings. The walls of the ruins bear witness to your fascination with the details of the reliefs and the grand columns, as you passionately record your impressions in your journal. The following day, even more excited than before, you take part in the traditional tea ceremony and, with your basic English, attempt to interact with the locals who share their stories of culture and daily life. You find these exchanges warm and enriching, with no regrets for having embarked on this journey so far. However, after a week immersed in happiness, you sense something amiss in the air. The faces of the locals are darker, the atmosphere feels tense, and you can't quite understand why. You prefer to disregard this detail and attribute it to the typical agitation of a weekend, when everyone seems more irritable. Today, you decide to explore the bustling streets, marveling at the architecture of mosques and historic bridges, immersing yourself in the vibrant atmosphere. You feel content, but harsh reality is about to manifest. Passing by a cafe, you notice everyone is astonished in front of the television screen, where the journalist is broadcasting serious news. People are focused on the anchor's words, which doesn't seem to be delivering good news. You ponder if it's a political issue, perhaps related to the new president or some election glitch. You've decided not to get caught up in the negative waves that seem to be flooding the country and forge ahead towards the perfumed gardens. There are good days and bad, but this seems to be the first of a series of 100 difficult days. As you get lost in the endless perfumed gardens, you daydream about the next time you'll come on your honeymoon with your future spouse, when suddenly a siren sounds, sharp and insistent, abruptly pulling you out of your reverie and bringing you back to the harsh reality we were talking about before. Prepare yourself for what's to come, as you'll need to be strong in the face of imminent circumstances. What initially seemed like just a call to prayer or some special announcement reveals itself as a grim omen of what lay ahead. Confusion grips the air, tension escalating with each passing moment, as I observe people in despair, abandoning their belongings in the most unexpected places and running in all directions in search of shelter. Instinctively, I join the crowd in their rush towards safety, while the sound of military jets roaring overhead echoes in my ears, followed by the disturbing sight of drones and missiles streaking across the skies. Amidst it all, the unsettling question arises: am I trapped in a nightmare, or is this the chilling reality unfolding before my eyes? Taking refuge among the locals, I quickly realize, through their expressions of fear, that the situation between the nations of Iran and Israel has reached a critical point, plunging us into an armed conflict, turning what was once a tourist trip into a fight for survival, as I'm still among the living. I invite you to subscribe here and enable all notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Before we continue our journey through Iran, allow me to offer a brief contextualization on why the conflict between Iran and Israel exists. The dynamics between these two countries are intricate and rooted in a historical, geopolitical, and strategic context that spans many years. Largely, this conflict is fueled by ideological and religious differences. Iran, as a Shiite Islamic republic, since the Iranian Revolution of 1979, has consistently expressed its opposition to the existence of Israel primarily for religious and ideological reasons. On the other hand, Israel, being a predominantly Jewish state, established in 1948, often finds itself in opposition to the predominantly Muslim countries in the region. Understanding this complex background is crucial to grasp the current tensions between Iran and Israel. In the following scenario, we observe support for armed groups, a phenomenon that has persisted over decades. Iran is widely recognized for its backing of various militant organizations in the region, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in the Gaza Strip, both of which are notoriously hostile to Israel. This support, encompassing both military and financial assistance, is perceived by Israel as a direct threat to its security. Meanwhile, there is an ongoing competition for regional hegemony, with both nations striving to expand their influence in the Middle East. Iran's strategic objective is to establish a Shiite axis extending from Tehran to Beirut, passing through Baghdad and Damascus. In contrast, Israel remains steadfast in its determination to safeguard its security and maintain its influence in the region, countering what it perceives as Iranian expansion. Adding to the complexity is the Iranian nuclear issue, which poses a significant concern for Israel. The prospect of Iran developing nuclear weapons is viewed as an existential threat, contributing to heightened tensions in the region. Israel staunchly opposes any potential nuclearization of Iran. Finally, the events that intensify tensions, such as attacks attributed to Iran against Israeli interests and actions by Israel against Iranian targets in Syria and other locations, often manifest as retaliations or preemptive measures. All of these elements contribute to a climate of distrust and confrontation between Iran and Israel, where each incident carries the potential to escalate into a larger conflict. This was precisely the case on April 1, 2024, when an assault on the Iranian embassy in Syria, attributed to Israel, heightened tensions between the two countries to a new level. In response to this attack, Iran launched a series of drone attacks against Israel, marking a significant escalation in the conflict. These drones primarily targeted military infrastructure and symbols of Israeli power, illustrating the reciprocity and intensity of the retaliatory strategies employed by both nations. The escalating violence underscores the fragility of the region's stability and the potential for further escalation without diplomatic intervention. And it's precisely because of that drone attack that you see the fighter jets flying overhead again, ready to respond, determined not to let you perish. So, with the help of a local friend, you decide to adapt to this new reality. Even with fear coursing through your veins, you're touched by the solidarity of those around you as you seek a way out of the country. Witnessing unexpected acts of kindness and the strength of the human spirit, you discover you're capable of much more than you imagined. Not only do you receive help, but you also offer your support to others, sharing what you have, whether it's food, water, or simply a word of comfort. As rockets streak across the sky, you pray that none of them find their way to you, with nerves on edge, checking your phone for the latest news through world and local news sites to better understand the scope of the conflict and which regions are being most affected. You try exchanging a few words with local residents for advice on staying safe, even amidst such a hostile climate. You establish bonds with various residents, who generously share practical advice on how to act in case of emergency, perhaps fueled by an excess of emotion and mutual solidarity. After exhausting hours trying to pick up signal on your phone and avoiding attacks and bombings, you finally make contact with your embassy in Tehran, seeking safety guidance, information on possible evacuations, and to register your presence in Iran, in a desperate effort to ensure your safety amidst the chaos. Despite the fear and uncertainty, you cling to hope, relying on your resilience and the support of those around you to navigate through this harrowing ordeal. Finally, someone who speaks English, a true blessing. For safety reasons, they recommended that I put together an emergency backpack with everything essential: water, non-perishable food, a first aid kit, a flashlight, extra batteries, and copies of my documents. It was a real chaos. It seemed like the end of the world, but I accepted the challenge without complaining. It was a matter of survival. After all, I couldn't die without enjoying another late afternoon on a beach. The following days were even darker. The city around me was slowly falling apart. Buildings disappeared one after another, leaving only debris and a thick cloud of dust. Nevertheless, I kept regular contact with the embassy and other foreigners to coordinate a possible evacuation. I was always alert, listening carefully to official announcements and security alerts, ready to act quickly if the situation worsened. On the 10th day of the war, I was still trapped in Iran, fighting to survive while writing everything in a diary. It was surreal to see how everything changed so quickly. But finally, a ray of hope emerged. This morning, I received a call from the embassy informing that buses would be available to take us home. The meeting point was set at a safe location on the outskirts of the city. It was as if a light at the end of the tunnel finally shone for me, who thought I would spend my days amidst the ruins. I prepared my backpack immediately, making sure to bring all necessary devices and extra batteries. As I headed to the meeting point, a sense of relief washed over me, knowing that help was finally on the way and that I would soon be out of harm's way. The next morning, bright and early, you leave your little corner. It's a surreal feeling leaving the apartment you rented, taking one last look at the now empty rooms that were once full of life. The streets are strangely quiet, many places closed, and the aftermath of the recent attacks scattered on the ground. The damaged buildings show the fresh scars of the conflict. You arrive at the meeting point, where several buses are already waiting with other foreigners. The atmosphere is tense, but everything is organized. Your heart tightens as you see the city you once loved undergo such a transformation. Thankfully, the evacuation process is swift, with the embassy coordinating everything meticulously to ensure everyone's safety. The bus journey to the airport is quiet and heavy, each lost in their own thoughts. Through the windows, you observe, powerless, the streets that used to be bustling with life, now only occasionally inhabited by locals and military patrols. The partially collapsed buildings and destroyed facades bear witness to the intensity of the attacks. Groups of people gather around water points or aid distribution, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy. At the airport, chaos reigns, with many people eager to leave. Families, students, businessmen, and other travelers, all united by the desire for safety. You carefully follow the instructions of the evacuation personnel, quickly pass through security checks, and head to the runway where a chartered plane is waiting. You're safe. Sitting comfortably in your double leather seat, you look out the window to see the city fade away. The neighborhoods you explored in the past few days are now just gray and destroyed areas. The streets and monuments seem fragile and vulnerable from above. The flames and smoke emanating from various areas give the scene an apocalyptic feel. You feel torn between the joy of reuniting with your family and the sadness of leaving behind a country that, despite everything, made you happy for a few days. Although your body is leaving Iran, a part of your heart remains with those who continue to live under the specter of war. Click on the video appearing on your screen to watch content as good as this one.